Voting blocks heavily courted by the candidates. We're talking about evangelicals, women, and young voters. Joining me live now with their view from New York, David Brody of the Christian Broadcasting Network, and in Washington, Paige Gardner of Women's Voices, Women Vote, and Jamu Green, former president of Rock the Vote. Thanks to all three of you for being here this morning. Really interesting to have you here to find out more about these different demographics that we have out and about, specifically on Super Tuesday. David, I want to start with you. Can the Republican Party really count on evangelicals coming to the polls and voting Republican today?
No, I think in a word, no. I think it's up for grabs. And, you know, there are a lot of factors in that. I mean, the Democratic Party, especially the Democratic National Committee, has made inroads, Heidi, since 2004. They have really targeted evangelicals, born-again Christians as well, and people of other faiths, too. And so what you're going to see here is that this has gone on for a while, and this is not an overnight sensation. This is not all of a sudden Democrats are playing to people of faith. This has been going on for a while, and what they've actually had sent surrogates out to these communities, folks that care about things like Darfur and poverty and a host of other issues. Climate change is a big one. So they're not looking for the pro-life, pro-traditional marriage votes, and they've made major inroads, and it's really opened up the playing field.
So who are they going to vote for?
Well, on the Democratic side, you know, it depends. I mean, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama actually have two different, distinct set of appeal, if you will, to evangelical voters to a certain extent. I mean, Barack Obama talks a lot about reaching across party lines, if you will, a bipartisan approach. You know, he talks the language of evangelicals quite a bit. You'll hear him talk about his personal relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
That resonates with evangelicals, and they'll be more apt to listen to him. And Hillary Clinton, of course, has a faith story of her own. And then on the Republican side, well, then it goes down a wide mix as we go forward.
It does. Well, it's fascinating on that account for sure. Paige, I know that you focus a lot of your work on young unmarried women. Some interesting statistics that I was reading through. What specifically does that demographic mean to this election?
That demographic is going to be pivotal to this election. They have been, unmarried women in general, have been the largest swing group as you've gone from state to state. And it's interesting that the share of the electorate of those who are under 45 has actually equal to the share of those unmarried women over 45. So you're seeing both age groups turn out in high numbers.
Okay, so who are they voting for?
Well, they've gone from candidate to candidate, and I think what's interesting to me is the participation rates of unmarried women has grown so dramatically in this election cycle. Historically, they have performed under married women in terms of their participation rates, but now they're paying attention and they're showing up to the polls.
Okay, so a lot more of them, just not sure exactly how they'll cast their votes, and certainly not going in just one direction is what you're saying.
That's exactly right.
All right, Jamu, I want to get to you. You say there will definitely be a high voter turnout for the youth of this country. Why do you think that is this time around?
Because this is a trend that we have been seeing since the 2004 election. In 2004, there was a 9% increase with voters under the age of 30. We saw another increase in the 2006 midterm elections. And given the amount of aggressive campaigning we have seen from Senator Obama and Senator Clinton and Huckabee and Ron Paul, young voters are really in the pole position going into Super Tuesday to come out as the deciding factor. They're the political force to be reckoned with right now. There are 44 million young voters under the age of 30 eligible to vote. They make up 21% of the electorate, and the campaigns have recognized that. I think if you look at in 2004, the John Kerry campaign was really rolling their eyes at young people in the beginning, and then at the end of the race, they were like, we're counting on young people. But in this time around, it's been young voters from the very beginning.
Yeah, in fact, you say that young voters care about the same types of issues as older voters. It's not that they care about something different. It's just that they have different perspective.
Absolutely. Young voters absolutely are looking at the economy and jobs as a top issue, the war in Iraq. When it comes to the war, it's their peers who are fighting and dying on the front lines. They want them to come home. When it comes to the economy and jobs and the rising cost of college tuition, if you look at what was talked about in an MTV forum the other day, where the candidates said college is being, really the door is being slammed in their face for college, the rising costs of it. I think this generation understands that they have the most at stake when it comes to what these candidates are going to do for the next 4 years.
Yeah, interesting. Paige, back to you. As far as women go, what issues are most important to them? Does that break down men versus women?
Well, among unmarried women particularly, the key issue is the economy. I mean, they are the most affected group by the downturn in the economy. So things dealing with their economic marginality and their struggles economically are really resonant with them. In addition, the war in Iraq, they were the first group of voters to want to get out of the war in Iraq and have been consistent ever since. So it's the economy and the war in Iraq.
And David, in fact, on that note, you say that people underestimate how much evangelicals really care about radical Islam and the war on terror. Are we going to see effects of that in the polls today?
Yeah, I think so to a certain degree, and John McCain is probably gonna be helped out quite immensely in that. You know, everywhere I go on the campaign trail, the evangelicals that I talk to will say, hey, listen, you know what, I care about the life issue, I care about the marriage issue, those are non-negotiables for me, but oh, by the way, I don't want to get blown up by a terrorist as well. I mean, you know, a lot of times we tend to put evangelicals in a box and look at them as just a subgroup, but indeed, they do care a lot about the war on terror and national security, and John McCain is tapping into some of that, the patriotism, the POW, the straight talker. Evangelicals care quite a bit about this idea that things are black and white, good versus evil. And this plays quite well within the McCain camp, and they know it.
All right, quickly to all three of you, real quick now, tell me what we're going to see on Wednesday morning with regard to your demographic that we've talked about here today. Paige?
I think the key thing you'll see is a continuing trend and enormous participation rates, and they will be the pivotal group.
All right, Jamu?
I'm going to say the exact same thing. I think young voters will be the pivotal group. I think they will probably
it can't be the same answer.
They'll probably at least double their turnout. I think their turnout in California and Minnesota is going to be overwhelming. And I think probably Senator Obama is going to get the lion's share of that vote.
And David, final thought.
I think you'll see Mike Huckabee do very well in the South with evangelicals, but don't count out John McCain. He has polled very well. You may see a three-way split.
All right, guys, thanks so much. Great conversation. Appreciate it. David Brody, Paige Gardner, and Jamu Green. Once again, thank you. If you would like to